our second TEMO talk show. Today we have actually a very special guest, and his name is Michael Eels. He is not going to be with us in the chair or here live, but he will be with us via Skype. He is in Brisbane, Australia. He has started up Business Model and Company for the as the Australian partner. Business Model and Company has been created by the people who produced the business model generation. It's its own business model in itself because there's so many different spin-offs from the business model generation, from the business model canvas. There's a lot of canvases that we're seeing that are being created. There's a lot of businesses that are utilizing it to do facilitations, and Michael has started up in Australia after having 15 years of background in finance and banking. He's also his own entrepreneur. He has worked in several different businesses. And if you would dial up to Michael, then let's begin. I don't hear any Skype. So let's just do some rules of engagement. What's going to happen is it's going to be a little bit of a different format than normally we would do the TEMO talk show because of the scenario that he's going to be via telephone and is not going to be here to interact in the same way. And it was 11th hour, so last minute I caught him last night so that he could do this because we had someone who was sick. So, therefore, he's not going to have a presentation ready for you.
Hello, Laurie.
Hi, Michael. Everyone can hear you.
Okay.
This is Michael.
How is everyone?
Everybody, how are you? Good? A little bit more enthusiastic. A little bit more.
Yeah, good enthusiasm shout.
Okay, can you hear us okay, Michael?
Yes, I can, Laurie.
Okay, great. Well, Michael, why don't you do us the favor of kind of, in your own words, tell us a little bit about Business Model Incorporated and about your journey there.
Sure. Yes. Well, Business Models Inc. was established by Patrick Vander Pyle back in around 2009 was the real launch of the business, and that coincided with the book Business Model Generation. And the growth of the business over the years has tended to reflect the increased awareness within business as to the role a business model plays in shaping value. And in 2013, in September of 2013, that's last year, we launched a number of offices around the world. And we did that in one day, so we coincided the growth of the business across effectively 9 countries in one day. And myself and my business partner here in Australia opened the offices for Australia and New Zealand. And so we've been now running with the business locally and working in collaboration with our international team since September last year.
Okay, perfect. And Michael, what do you actually do with your clients in Australia?
So we have, as Business Models Inc., we have a focus on the role a business model plays in the search. And when we talk about the search, this is what we're looking for as businesses to create, capture, and deliver value. And at Business Models Inc., when we talk about business model innovation with our clients or business model reinvention, in the classical sense, this is about helping the business reinvent itself. And what we focus on there is the reinvention of your value around your customer. Because, of course, if you don't have the customer, you don't have any value attributable to your business. And so for larger businesses that we work with, in particular, this is much easier said than done. There's a lot of barriers and resistance that we face when working with very mature, very large customers. But what we do is we help them become aware of the changing environment, the context of that change that's really shaping our world. And when we walk through those conversations, our role is to really reassure them that there is a disciplined pathway or process to the use and the value in business modeling to help address the changing world around us. And often those businesses that do present the traditional barriers and resistance to the reinvention of perhaps their selling proposition or their unique selling proposition, come to us and ask us for help. And that's when we tend to talk about the pathways of least resistance to reshaping the business model of an organization. And in helping our clients achieve that, we tend to create new value for them or leverage existing value within the business that's perhaps untapped.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a little bit about the role that culture plays in the business model Inc. or in utilizing it, since the company is slowly taking over the world, from what I can see, and you have a lot of partners in different countries. Do you have any kind of discussion internally about the role that culture plays?
Absolutely. We see culture as being a real, an anchor for good and for bad, but the anchor to a business. And when we talk about the signals that culture can send us, it tends to be driven by traditional values, by alignment to those values within the organization, and of course the individuals that lead that, but also the way that we choose to shape our values and our culture externally. So while culture is internal, it's like brand and identity. It's both internal and external. And it tends to, for Business Models Inc., be reflective in the way we partner with our global networks. So, for example, we have an office in Central Eastern Europe run by Vlad and his team, and they have a very strong alignment to social innovation. And that's a fairly consistent thread across all the partners within Business Models Inc. And having run the Hub Bucharest business for a number of years, Vlad and his team have really taken on board Business Models Inc. and the role of shaping business models for social enterprise and government organizations. Across the world toward the US, we have a partner in Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, by the name of Lisa Solomon. And Lisa's focus has traditionally been from a consulting perspective, a business perspective, but having found design and design-led innovation, Lisa's reshaping strategic conversations within the boardroom. And her role now is really focused on helping organizations use design in order to synthesize and think through their problems in a fresh way. And in fact, Lisa's just published a book called Designing Strategic Conversations, or Moments of Impact, Designing Strategic Conversations. And when we look at our culture within the business, each individual partner tends to shape and bring value to that conversation in their own way, both from their native cultures in the areas that they've grown up, in the life that they live, but then also from the business context. And so I would say on one level we have a very strong shared value platform across the group, but it's still quite flexible and it's adaptive. So we love to work with people that are innovative in their approach to creativity and thinking. And we also love to then have those same individuals shape how we then deliver our value to our clients.
Okay, I'm going to dial it back just a little bit before I start asking you the questions that we outlined. And
Sure.
I'm just wondering, how did you come to Business Models Inc.? I imagine you read the book like most of the world and started using the canvas and fell in love, and suddenly you started engaging in conversation about partnering.
Yeah, good question. That's exactly what happened. In fact, I was working for a financial services firm in the pre-GFC era, the pre-global financial crisis era. We could do nothing wrong. The business was growing at a huge rate of knots. We were listed on the stock exchange. We were flying quite high. And then when the GFC hit, some of the smartest people in the room started to panic. And I was in a corporate development strategy role trying to manage some of the directions that the business was seeking to pursue, both to defend its core value and its customers, but also to figure out how to grow. And that was a real challenge. So when I came across the book, I started applying the framework from within the book on communicating the visual representation of a business model. And so what I was doing there is I was moving away from some of the traditional reporting frameworks that I would send to my board, and instead started to simply visualize the moving elements that reflected our business and the options that we are pursuing. And that for me is the essence of business modeling, where you're searching for new options and new ways of creating value. And using the business model canvas as a template to represent what we do today, but also as a template to then explore options for the future. And when I found the book, I found Patrick. So that was in 2009. And over the years, we got to know each other, and that culminated in a journey for me to Berlin early last year. And that was a conference that was run in Berlin by Alexander Osterwalder, who is the author of the book Business Model Generation, and his PhD actually created the canvas. And this event was called the Business Design Summit in Berlin, which brought together around 400 experts from around the world, both in academia as well as in consulting and corporate leadership. So we're talking about Stephen Blank and Henry Chesbrough and some global experts in innovation from the US, right the way through to the head of Toyota Financial Services, Lisa Chen, and the head of product and strategy from the technology firm Autodesk. And all these people were together in Berlin. And for me, at that point in my career, I was setting up the consulting services division for an accounting firm called Grant Thornton in Australia, in Queensland, my state. And when I came across and experienced the value in this summit, the Business Design Summit, I thought, wow, this is the future of business. These are the business leaders I want to be working with. And from there, the conversation naturally developed. And of course, we talked about partnership.
Okay. So we are calling this TEMO talk show The Secrets of Business Models. So we're going to start picking your brain for some of those secrets. We're going to start off with what motivates the business development for you in your company?
Okay, well, in the first instance, we tend to simplify our view of the world in terms of the value we can bring. And what we'd like to say is that business modeling and business model innovation tends to reflect two equations. One is the creation of value by way of new growth or new opportunities, but also the reduction of complexity, or the way we go about reducing or eliminating other complexities that may be cost related. And when we look at our business development activities, we seek out those firms, those organizations that tend to have an acknowledgement of a particular difficulty in their existing business, or they are looking for solutions for the future. And those two balancing points are what we lever or what we leverage, so that when we talk to a new business for the first time, we tend to approach them with what we talk about a weighed value. So we're talking about weighing up each other. So are they ready for Business Models Inc. in the conversations that we use? And are we ready for them? And so this is a delicate balance. And so we don't focus on swaying someone's opinion or convincing them that this is the right approach. Instead, we say business modeling is not for everyone, because it can lead to uncomfortable decisions that you must make if you want to be deliberate in the design of your business. And that's what we talk about, that all businesses are designed with deliberate purpose.
Okay, Michael, would you say it's safe to, would you say that it is a certain alignment that you're looking for in your clients when you're aiming to represent somebody or work with somebody, that you look for the alignment so that they're already there, so that you don't have to, like you mentioned, try to convince them?
That's right, yeah. We definitely look for the alignment from a customer needs point of view, and we talk about either the pains that they're seeking a solution for, or the opportunities for creating gain. So we talk along the lines of pains and how we can solve them or reduce them, and gains by way of which we can seek to facilitate that.
Okay, and to my earlier comment, I was wondering, how would you then break it more like practically? How do you figure out when a company is aligned? How, if the students are trying to figure out how they go about this, it's interesting to hear your journey, but it's also very helpful for them to hear practical steps of how you could give insight to what they should be looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And we start to break the world down into trends and patterns. So we look at industries and we look at individual organizations within those industries. And at the global level, when we talk about mega trends, these are the drivers of change, and this is what is shaping the world around us. So we tend to talk about disruptive technologies and the role that disruptive technology has on an industry or a business. We tend to look at business model disruption that may not be product orientated, but it could be service orientated. So we look at the ways we can identify the manifestation of of movements in industries such as the productization of service companies or vice versa. And of course, we look at changing workforce dynamics and the way the world is shifting in terms of a much more collaborative environment. And that tends to underpin how we communicate with our potential customers and the steps we take. So the process we follow initially is, if we think of an audit or a diagnostic, we talk to the customer and we say, if you're exploring any unknown possibilities, then we can help you explore those unknown possibilities. We also look at how to create alignment across the business to its core value. That relates to its value it gives its customer. We also explore creating elements of innovation or differentiation that exist within the business that are perhaps unknown or just need to be unlocked because the potential's there and it's familiar, but the business doesn't understand how to go about tackling the problem because it feels quite complex. So our planning approach is that we take this conversation, we frame it into a process, and the first process is about this audit or diagnostic. It's all about understanding what's happening today. So we talk about what is happening. Then we start to explore options. So we start to ask the organization, how would you like to move forward here? What ways would you like us to assist you in that? And we apply different techniques, and we explore these techniques using the canvas. And then we move into what we call validation. So everything we've done up to this point is based on informed assumptions and some guesses. And some of those assumptions are provided to us by the business, our client, but others we get from outside the context of looking around the industry and being informed about what's going on. Now what we do is we validate all of our assumptions by talking with customers, by talking with partners, and then mapping out the options that we've chosen to move forward with. And that tends to lead us to implementing or determining what we're going to do. And that tends to be what most people call the business plan. So that's when we actively start to document a plan, and that's what we determine to execute on.
Okay. So when we talked about the techniques, in terms of the ideation phase, what kind of techniques are you implementing when you're in that phase with your clients?
Okay, so when we talk about that domain, we're talking about the nature of an organization. We're looking at its identity. We're looking at its purpose, its long-term aspirations. So we're trying to get a really strong alignment to what is the core drivers and motivations of this business. And that can tend to be different to the request from the client's point of view. So we go in behind the request and we look at the motivation. And then when we go through that ideation process, what we're looking at is, again, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the existing business and how they can be used to move forward by addressing gaps in the future value chain. And what we'll look at is techniques such as fresh watching. We call it fresh watching, where we look around the world and we say, look at Skype. You know, Skype, we're on Skype today. Skype grew its business across the world by offering something for free and then monetize that by seeking a premium alignment so that we would purchase either on an hourly basis and we would use credit, or we would pay for the premium services and that would be a subscription. Other businesses we can look to have actually innovated in the past, and we take those potential innovations and we apply them to the world of our client, and we say, what if we did this? What if we did that? And that's a key question technique. And this comes back to simple things like the right questions will shape the right answers, and not going in with a predetermined answer or solution for a client, but in fact having a very open learning mind so that we don't box ourselves into a solution that may not exist. And so when we go through these innovation techniques and ideation techniques, we're looking at trends in the world around us, patterns that may be shaping particular industries at a point in time, and we look at what we call epicenters of innovation within an existing business model. And generally, the huge value in most businesses that's untapped relate to the customer domain.
Okay, when you go to the clients, you introduce the business canvas. I have a question from my colleagues about what types of barriers do you meet when you're working with the business model canvases?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the starting point to this answer is that nothing exists in isolation here. And the business model canvas as a tool sits within an environment. And if we seek to isolate the canvas from its environment, you tend to get a fairly high failure rate in engagements. So what we talk about here, and we use the metaphor of say, nature. And we even present these visually in conversations with our clients. And we say, in exploring this environment, we're going to be looking at the ecosystem of the business. You know, that's its employees, its customers, your competitors, your suppliers, your partners. And then we go a little wider and we start to look at the ecology of the business. And what we mean by that is we look at not only the customers, but the user. And this is about breaking down the environment, not only inside the business model canvas, but around the business model canvas. And if we don't do that, we tend to get much more resistance. But of course, if we do that, the initial barriers are, it feels like a very disruptive process. So we have a very natural conversation to begin with, and it's literally a conversation. We don't approach this dialogue from a formal proposal presentation point in the beginning. We initially get to understand who our customers are, what their needs are, and then we seek to shape a potential framework around a solution, and we start from there.
Okay. I'm looking at the time, and I want to open it up for questions. So I would like to hear your take on if, by chance, you utilize the business model canvas for your own business.
Yes, we certainly have, and we do. And there's a key point here. There is no one business model. Okay, so whenever we work with a business, including our own, we are realistic that at any point in time, there's the right business model for that moment. But there's a difference between a good business model, perhaps, or a bad business model, for example, and the right business model. And often the difference in the result is related to success or failure. And so when using the business model canvas, use it like a prototyping tool. So we're prototyping. And when we have conversations about our ideas, this is us prototyping using the canvas. And as Business Models Inc., we are continually using the canvas to think about and rethink all of our actions and all of our activities. And they tend to evolve on a very rapid basis. And we talk about a 3-month process where we review everything every 3 months. Of course, we also do that annually. But the Business Model Canvas is a great tool, again, for looking at what's happening today and creating options for the future.
Okay, last question. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Do you have any good advice for, yeah, okay, yes. I was going to ask that. They wanted to hear it's because I'm on the stage and I have faculty members with me writing questions on my iPad while I'm talking to you. So it's very high tech in here right now. But yeah. We wanted to hear, we have a group of engineering students, and as I mentioned in my brief to you coming on the show today, we use the business model generation as one of our textbooks, and they're going to be leaving this afternoon to work together in groups. And so I'm wondering if you could give them some inspiration or some insights to how they can best benefit from using the book while they're here during the course at TEMO, but also how they could eventually use it beyond their university, beyond their studies.
Okay, yeah. Good question, and I'll start with perhaps a short case study. So one of our clients is the largest manufacturer of industrial piping and tubing, and they are a global business with factories and operations in many countries, and in each country they have a potential problem, and the problem is, who is our customer and why are they different between countries? So on one level they have hospitals as customers in one country, which is their dominant or predominant customer, and then on another level in another country, it could be an engineering outfit that's looking at the manufacture or the development of large infrastructure projects. And so this business uses the canvas every day as a living document within its business to always challenge the assumptions. And they always start with, do we understand our customer? And when the customer behavior changes, perhaps they want a new product solution or a service solution, or perhaps they want to better collaborate and even help the client in this context grow its business into a new market. What happens is the business model canvas is a tool used to frame the conversation inside the business. So the executives get together, they look at the customer domain, they look at the financial context of that, and of course the resourcing and activities required to deliver this value, whether it's new value or existing value. And so it's, again, a great tool that you can take away this afternoon and start to play with, both in your coursework, where you start to really map out, hopefully map and challenge the existing business models and understandings of existing business models out there in the world today. But also when you find yourself in business, working with your senior managers and your executives, this is a great tool to shape conversations. So think of it like a vision or a painting, like a canvas, a picture. Look at it like a mind map and use the building blocks to continually look at how you tell the story or the business narrative of your business. So again, the business model canvas is a great tool to explore how to tell the narrative of a business. And when you go away today, if you start by focusing on what we call the product and the market fit, if you have an exercise to work on, look at the value an engineering firm, whether it be through products or services, offers the world, offers its customers. Try to understand the value drivers for that potential product or service by looking at the activities and the potential resources required, and start to explore the context of what if something changes? What if something in the world changes? Okay?
Okay, sounds good. So I'm going to open it up for questions. We have one of our fine TAs walking around with a microphone. Do you guys have any questions? This is your big opportunity. Anything regarding the business model canvas, anything regarding business model generation, anything regarding business model Inc. They are dead silence. Well, then I guess I will ask a question. Yes, we do have a question. We just have to get the mic over to him. Thank you, Jakob.
I was wondering if his approach changed when he has an upstart company with have no history, so making assumptions of a market you don't know, you have no previous history, how that would change how you do the canvas thing.
Okay, Michael, could you hear the question?
I could, yeah. Okay, great question. The starting point to this question is that what we do for small and startup organizations is very similar to what we do for the large business. The main difference is how we frame this conversation. So for a small business which has an unknown market potential, what we're talking about there is a lot of guesses, a lot of assumptions, but we have to start there, right? So we start with our guesses and with our assumptions, and then we map out a potential model as to how we could create value and monetize that value. Then what we do, of course, is we talk to the potential customer. So we must identify someone to speak to, and then we must validate if they believe in the value that we're creating and will they pay for it. We do that in the same way for a large customer. So a large business of ours will come to us with a similar problem in the customer domain, and it could be that they're struggling to acquire more customers and their growth is slowing, or it could be that they're not retaining as many customers as they want to. And so they do the exact same thing. And in fact, an important note here is many of the world's largest companies right now are seeking ways to what we call smallify. How do they actually get the DNA of a startup and inject it into this massive business? Because they know that they've over-engineered or they've overcomplicated their system of decision making. And so what we do here is we provide them very simple frameworks, building models or building blocks to challenge their decision frameworks and understanding. And of course we do that for big companies as well as small.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a question up in the front.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could talk a little about what typical assumptions you make when you start using the canvas.
Okay, yeah. So when you first start to use the canvas, you take an approach of looking to understand alignment between the building blocks. So the number one assumption that we seek to break is if there is a potential post-it note or note inside the canvas and it doesn't relate to any other building block, then we call that an orphan element. This is an element of the business model that doesn't fit, that doesn't align. And so the word we use to explore this assumption, and the assumption that we make, is that there will always be issues of alignment within every business. And we seek to minimize the inconsistencies of that conversation, and we seek to maximize the interdependencies so that a business, when you talk through the canvas, is a natural conversation. It's not an effort. Does that answer the question?
She's shaking her head, kind of, to
No.
the side. I think she has
So-
more to add to it. Go ahead. She said, okay, she decided, yes, it was good. I have a faculty question here. How do you handle disagreements in the discussions regarding the business model canvas? So, actually, in a team, the internal discussions.
Yeah, and that's a very common element of issue in any engagement. So when you're working with an organization, on one level, a business executive, say perhaps on the sales side of the business, will have a particular view of the world. And then on another side of the table, you might have an operations member from the back office. And again, they have a different view of the world. And so when you start to explore what we talk about as consensus, you immediately are challenged with inconsistencies in understanding. And that can get quite heated, especially when you have two executives trying to say the same story in a different way and not believing each other. And so the approach we take here is using the conversation of co-design or collaboration. We enter the dialogue with initially a very loose framework of pulling together everyone's assumptions and understandings of each building block. And we start with the customer. And that tends to get most of the trouble out of the way early, because most businesses have different views of who their customers are. And then once you start to explore that dialogue, you start to understand the behavior and the patterns of decision making within a business. Who are the social influences? Who are perhaps more politically influenced in their decision making? And from Business Models Inc., in our point of view, what we start to do is we help people weigh up the conversations so that we use a process of, again, collaboration and making sure that we set rules in these conversations so that if there is a potential resistance that can't be overcome, we park those issues and we readdress them offline. Because when you're in a working environment and you're working with a customer at a point in time, it can be very disruptive when there's a lot of confusion. So we must always work through where there's consistencies and then spend the right amount of time to get through those inconsistencies.
Wonderful. Well, we are looking at the time, and it's, what time is it? You're in Brisbane right now?
At 7:35.
Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought it was. All right, I have one more question.
Yeah. Oh, powerful microphone. I have a question which I have a little bit trouble phrasing, but I'll try it. I've now read the book Business Model Generation, and a lot of the innovations, a lot of the examples in the book, they relate, I think, to a new type of product, and in a lot of cases, quite a superior product. And to me, it's obvious that a superior product will drive a good business. So when you create a superior product, you will have good business. But it's very centered on product, a lot of the examples. Can you come up with some examples, perhaps real or not real, that relate to other parts of the canvas that drive a business model?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the key examples we use in the world is the example of Nespresso. And the way that they took a product, which is a product, and aligned a service model around their membership and loyalty program to differentiate themselves. And that's why many people spent more money on Nespresso cafes than they did on other coffee. But if we then go and look at other businesses, if we look at the resource domain, so we look at the resources of an organization, and a good example here is Amazon. So when Amazon looked at its resources, it identified it was underutilizing its hardware. And so what it did is it said, what if we sell the time that's invested in this hardware, which is effectively cloud-based time, to customers that want to rent that space? So we've got customers out there looking to host themselves on a potential NEC or Fujitsu system or one of the large technology companies' platforms like IBM. And we could tackle that problem by offering them lower cost space. And so that was the foundation of Amazon Web Services. So this was a business that was selling books online that decided to explore a new pathway of innovation. And it wasn't necessarily a better product offering. It was, in this case, perhaps cheaper to begin with. But of course, it needed to wrap around a very strong service model to make sure that the customer experience was in fact better than the likes of IBM. And there's other examples when we talk about, say, product companies offering service innovation. And what we're seeing now are the manifestations of these examples, again, with, say, transport companies or logistics companies moving to online services. So how do we migrate all of our customers and all of the behavior that they expect in the physical world onto an online platform? And so what we're seeing there are the use of, again, business model innovation techniques to effectively take their audience, take their customers, both in the product and service domain, and move it online into a digital arena. And that is as a trend in business is something that's here to stay. So we see a lot of these examples in the work that we do where customers come to us and say, I'm looking at my digital strategy and my service model around this. Does that help?
Okay. Last question is from the faculty, and it is, are you involved in the organizational implementation of the business model? So once you work with the clients, how engaged are you once you have created once you've co-created the business canvas, the business model canvas with them?
Yeah, okay, so what we tend to do there is we work through to a roadmap, and the roadmap that we work through is the agreed decisions to implement a pathway for innovation or a pathway for a business model change. And that tends to be something that we have enabled the business to do themselves, again, using the tools and the new skills that we give them. But we do shadow those conversations. And when we are asked to walk and hold the hand of the business through the journey, our first response is, if you can't do it for yourself, you can't expect someone else to do this. And so we tend to have an attitude that in every decision that relates to a business and perhaps the reinvention of itself, or just a simple conversation around how we're going to actually improve our customer service, our first comment is, do not outsource that. Do not outsource the most important function of your role as a business to a consultant or a third party. However, we will help shadow and support the conversation, but it must be resourced internally if the business is to take this seriously. And so we don't go through the full journey, but we shadow and we work with businesses in that journey.
Excellent. Okay, well, Michael, I want to say thank you very much for spending the time with us today and giving us some more insights into the business model generation, into the business model canvas, into the business model Inc. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Saying goodbye from the TEMO talk show here in Copenhagen. Students, would you like to say goodbye? Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, I think we can probably, unless you have if you have any comments, final comments, you can of course add that. I should have probably waited to clap.
That's okay. That's okay. Good luck to everyone in their studies, and again, keep on business modeling.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. You guys can stretch a little bit, and then we're going to come back and in 5 minutes and resume with how it applies in the TEMO context. Thank you.